Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports Soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's episode, we have a weekend recap for everybody. So welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your Labor Day weekend. Before we get into everything, a quick reminder to watch all of our episodes and interviews on YouTube. You can subscribe to our page to get notified whenever we go live at youtube.com/attacking third. Lisa, we got to chat about some things. We got to chat about a couple games, even though it was a holiday weekend and there really wasn't supposed to be a ton of NWS action, but there still was some. And of course, there was national team action. How are you doing today?
I am good. You're exactly right. There wasn't supposed to be action, but we had a little bit of everything because we had national team stuff, NWSL, domestic soccer in the US, and then also a little bit of like international battle between in the Copa and
Yeah.
Helena because of Angel City and the Mexican women's national team. That also kicked off Monday of Labor Day, but it's good to be back with you, Sandra, for sure, for sure. I hope everyone found the sun this weekend or the shade in their pumpkins, whatever they were looking for.
Their shade or their pumpkins. I love that so much. Yeah, it was a little bit of a mixed bag this weekend. There was definitely some sun in Chicago, but then there was some like gloomy rainy days. So it was like
Oh my
I think the
god,
perfect
yeah.
mix of both. The perfect mix of like, okay, like get in that last like summer day, but also get ready for pumpkins as you
Oh my
as
gosh,
you
for
say.
sure. We had great weather in Philly, and today it's just downpouring. Like, it's
Ugh.
torrential downpours all day. It's, like, pretty gross and a mess, but, hopefully that clears up pretty soon.
Hopefully it clears up soon because you're repping the gear right now. You're repping the USWNT gear. The team is headed to DC. Hopefully
Mhm.
they get some decent weather as well because they're going to continue or close out really this 2-game series against Nigeria. Let's talk a little bit about this first match. United States win the first game in Kansas City 4-0 in this one. So maybe not exactly what we necessarily predicted, or maybe perhaps even anticipated.
Mhm.
But something else that we noticed in this game, Lisa, is we saw the same starting lineup as the CONCACAF W Championship final versus Canada. So definitely some familiarity in that aspect. I know this was the seventh meeting overall between these two teams, and there has been that familiarity in terms of like, tightly contested, pretty close matches. There have been like mostly narrow score lines
Mhm.
between these two teams in the past. I think the most recent was last year. There was like a 3-1 win. So like maybe a 2-goal margin, but we're talking about a 4-0 score line here. But what were some of your takeaways from this match?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the history between these 2 sides, it's been tight, and after the US won the CONCACAF W Championship, we talked about it in our initial preview about what we were maybe expecting to get, not expecting to get from this side, but when we saw the starting lineups roll out and it was the exact same one as the CONCACAF W Championship final, I was not surprised. Like,
Yeah.
this is the team and the 11 players that Black Witanowski wants to lean on moving forward. And I think that's pretty safe to say at this point. So that's Alyssa Nair in goal, Emily Fox in the left back, Becky Sauerbrunn, Alana Cook, Sophia Huerta along the back line, Andy Sullivan, Lindsay Horan, and Rose Lavelle in the midfield, with Mallory Pugh, Alex Morgan, and Sophia Smith in the front line. And we've known this. He's talked about these players and this 11 and this group, specifically the front line, Pugh, Morgan, and Smith, about how they need to find rhythm, how they need to find space and create. And especially with Horan and Lavelle in the midfield underneath of them, how that combination of 5 players, the 2 attacking midfielders and the 3 strikers, the 3 forwards, need to really, really play off of each other. So I wasn't that surprised to see this rotation. I know you and I had talked a little bit about Megan Rapinoe and if she was going to get a start, and I said
Yeah.
no. It's not her time to get starts anymore, but she is going to play a role in this team and in this game, and she did. She subs in around the hour mark, just over the hour mark, for Vlak Ledanovsky, where he did make a slew of substitutions. All 6 subs that were available to him were used in this game. But in terms of what kind of how this team played and how it rolled out, I was really impressed with how they started. Fast and
Yeah.
furious. we know Nigeria is a team that's going to look to go direct, but how can they challenge the United States? And in the first half, the United States controlled the game, right? A lot of the momentum they had, they were getting shots and opportunities in the opening minutes of this match. And ultimately, the goals that did come from this in this 4-0 loss ended up being a number of them in the first half, right? And then closing out with a PK towards the end of this match. But I think that fresh, fast, physical start from the United States is something that is really, really positive and a great step in the right direction. Because when you look at like the overall stats of this team, this was their 70th game unbeaten at home on U.S. soil in this 4-0 win. Alyssa Nair in goal ended up getting her 50th career shutout. There was just a lot of positives that came out of this match, and we can get into it a little bit more, but I'm not at all surprised with the starting lineup that we saw and top with how the U.S. started for sure.
Yeah, I think maybe if I had to look at a top three or top five even, looking at this game and players who have pretty strong individual performances and 100% like contributed to
Mm-hmm.
the score line, contributed to the win. I think you're obviously looking at that frontline trio of Smith, Morgan, and Pugh. I just think that they were immediate, quite
Mm-hmm.
frankly, like in their impact. And I think maybe extending that to a Lindsay Horan or extending that to a Rose Lavelle, just sort of seeing the movement between these five players in particular, watching moments where even somebody like Smith was dropping a little bit lower at times. When the defensive line was more on the ball, just kind of making sure that there were those extra outlets or options.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just good to see, because it's just like this is the time in which we're likely to see more of it, quite frankly, just because of this whatever months long build up to the World Cup. You want to see these particular players continue to have these very successful games, even if it is this type of scoreline. I know that there's still going to be that unfortunate narrative around this team, right? When you see a scoreline like that, about, hey, like, are they going to be challenged, quote unquote. I'm using like quotations with that, because I sometimes I have like the perceptions around that word for me are like kind of like kind of tough sometimes, because I'm just like, well, I was just like, let's not be disrespectful to like the opposition here, because when you're looking at Nigeria's side of things and the history between these two teams, again, it's like we're like, hey, like maybe this is going to be another one of those games where it's like a 2-0. I thought it maybe was going to be like a 2-0, or like a 3-1, and we saw a 4-0. But we're looking at a team a Nigerian side that's coming off of a tournament where they qualified for their World Cup, made it as semifinalists,
Mm-hmm.
Africa Cup of Nations. But they had high ambitions of going and winning the whole thing, but then, being taken to penalties and coming into a game like this. So both teams coming off of their like post-July World Cup excursions, but you have this Nigerian side that like had a flurry of injuries, so I had wondered like exactly what type of team we're going to see. So when I saw their starting lineup, like I was excited to see somebody like Ifeoma Amano be tabbed with the star to maybe go up against some defenders that she has familiarity with, right? And playing with the NWSL. But watching Uchenna Kanu get a start for Nigeria as well, I was like, this is a player that can maybe cause a little bit of havoc. And I think in that first half, she might have been the one Nigerian player who really kind of got like a good look in front of goal. I think either about a half hour in, and at this point, if you're the United States, you're already up like 2-0. It was a tough start for Nigeria, and her shot going a bit wide, but I think at this point, like it was really just about maybe getting a look at the net, and we didn't maybe see another good opportunity until perhaps that second half. And I think maybe when you're looking at the tail of the tape, maybe you're looking at a second half, if you're Nigeria, as something that was something to work on. Like that's the momentum that maybe you're going to carry into this DC game.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
we're talking about, it's like, okay, it's like, well, it's like they were down 3-0 at halftime, and then you're going into the second half and you concede one goal, and the one goal that's conceded is, again, we're talking about this trio of players, but Mallory Pugh, really good both on and off the ball in this match, winning dead ball situations. And one of them was this penalty kick, getting fouled in the box, and
Mhm.
this ends up being Alex Morgan's lone goal of the game. It steps up and converts this penalty to give it the 4-0 scoreline. So I think if you're looking at that, you're saying, okay, went from conceding a bunch of goals in this first half, only conceding in, the one in the second half. This, like, are we going to see something different from this Nigeria team in this second game? And maybe here's where we transition to DC, Lisa, because we
Yeah.
saw this team already come into this first game dealing with a bit of an injury bug, and then they exited this match with only 10 players because they ran out of subs because of continued injuries. So what are you looking to see out of this next DC game from the United States and Nigeria?
I mean, you said so much of it. I think the momentum from the second half of that first game for Nigeria was huge. They pushed players a little bit higher and wider, which put more pressure on the United States back line. So when Nigeria did look to go direct, they had more numbers to compete for that first and second ball. And that put the US under a bit of pressure.
Yeah.
So if I'm Nigeria, I'm leaning onto that and saying, okay, if we can put numbers higher, yes, it exposes us a little bit in the back, but we can create more chances and opportunities. Then it becomes a bit of a transition game in the sense of getting back and defending in terms of that. But with Nigeria going down a player, I mean, even on the first goal for the US in that match, Michelle Alozie was off the pitch.
Yeah.
She was getting treated for. So Nigeria was at 10 players at that point. I think that comes down to coaches' management. Like, obviously you can't dictate when a player is going to get injured, but if you use all your subs and then you're down, like, that doesn't help Nigeria, which is an incredibly strong team. Heading into the second match for the United States and Nigeria in DC, I don't know about the starting lineup. This is something I was really thinking about. I was like, is he going to do the same thing? Which, if he does, no surprises. Honestly, no surprises. We saw the rotation in the first game was Margaret Person for Sophia Smith, Megan Rapinoe in for Pugh, Ashley Sanchez in for Horan, and then Haley Mason for Fox, who was playing in Kansas City, where she plays for club in the NWSL with the Current. So that was not a surprise at all. I was really happy to see Mace get minutes. And then Chrissy Muos in for Lavelle and Hatch in for Morgan. So if Vlatko Andonovski starts with the same starting 11, I'm not going to be surprised. However, I think that we could see a little bit of rotation in terms of like Sanchez in for Horan and Muis in for Lavelle, just like small player rotation, perhaps in that back line as well. I would really like to see Naomi Girma get minutes. Frankly, I want to see her play 90 in this match against DC. I think from what Vlatko Andonovski has told us in terms of his actions, it's most likely going to be Becky Sauerbrunn and Alana Cook in that back line. But I just think Girma is a player that he cannot sleep on, especially in terms of very, very recent form in NWSL play. Girma has outplayed Cook completely with San Diego Wave. And I want to see her be rewarded for that, get minutes, perhaps get a start in this one. I think we'll see Alyssa Nair still in goal in terms of this game. But in terms of like the goal scoring and how it happened in that first match versus the second half, I think that the United States can build off of that. They found so much success in the wide areas of the pitch, whether it was Smith and Pugh out wide or Fox and Huerta, I think Huerta had a fantastic first game. Can she build upon that? It's now these like individual moments for these players to take what they did particularly well, or maybe something they struggled with, and looking to build on that consistency or grow from that moment where they were. So I think we saw a great game from Smith. Yes, she notched a brace. She had an assist for the Horan goal, but she probably could have had another goal or two. Yeah. So it's those this is the point where this team needs to be incredibly, incredibly nitpicky about. Smith cannot shoot. The one that's coming to mind is when she was on a bit of a breakaway and she shot it right off the post, looking to go to that upper 90. Like, yes, she got in behind. Like, the run was great. The shot was there. She already had 2 goals and an assist at this point. So, like, no, she doesn't need that goal, but that needs to be finished heading into a World Cup year against England in a month's time from now. That goal needs to find the back of the net. And
I'm with you.
Yeah, like it comes down to nitpicking. And I think that Smith is a player that wants to be the best in the world and has that her sights set on that. So this is something that the team needs to work on.
It's
Yeah.
it's funny to think about. It's like if Smith had the game that she had, and then like to sort of like that just comes to mind with like you have those kind of like number one team in the world type of problems. It's like that is where the areas in which they're like, we're gonna try to target this or go over this. I mean, like even listening to Andonovski in the post game comments, like after this particular match, like it's like, hey, like we just won 4-0, but we got to go back and review this game. We got to go back and review it because there are going to be things that we're going to have to look at and work on. And it's like you don't anticipate that maybe a ton of other programs might maybe have that type of mentality, but this one does, you know. And I do wonder, I'm with you in terms of the rotation that we're going to potentially see from game 1 to game 2. I mean, like, do you make Becky Sauerbrunn have like another 90-minute game against Nigeria, and I'm curious about that because I too, like, I think back to the preview that we did of these two matches, we both said like, hey, we really want to see Girma getting some time in these games. So I am curious if that's something that's going to be looked at. I mean, there's a number of players on here that you're looking at where you're just like, is player A, B, or C going to go have another second consecutive 90-minute game, like whether it's like a Sauerbrunn or a Sullivan, right? We saw Horan, Smith, Morgan, Pugh, Lavelle, like these players come off, obviously at a certain scheduled time. Does that also make way or pave way or mean that players like Purse or players like Rapinoe, or Sanchez or, Girma, like we're saying, are these the players that are going to be tasked with the start coming off of this type of win that the team just had? So those things I'm curious about, because it's like there's this combination of like, yes, you want to have these players together, making sure they're continuing to get as many minutes under their belt and establishing that type of chemistry in the lead up to the World Cup, while also keeping an eye on those matches ahead of you. Like they have the games in Europe coming up, while also keeping an eye on players who might be returning into the fold, from injury and maternity leave. Like Crystal Dunn is someone who's been participating in in trainings here. So there's like all these things and decisions that like you probably have to take a look at in terms of the landscapes of things if you're the coaching staff. I'm not envious of their position on how to make those decisions. We get to come here on the show and question them and think about them hypothetically. But I'm eager to see that in particular, that if that most immediate change is going to happen, like who are the players who are not going to be tasked with going in a second consecutive 90 minutes,
I mean, you mentioned a player like Becky Sauerbrunn, like she can for sure do it, but it's more about giving the opportunity to Naomi Girma, and like, can she play alongside?
You already saw Becky Sauerbrunn against Nigeria for a whole 90 minutes. You saw the scoreline. It's like, do you need to see that again? So I'm curious about that, and I'm hopeful that it's the latter, so that we get to see.
I know, me too.
Get to see Girma in action.
For sure. But in this second match, there are some notables. Alex Morgan sits on 119 goals right now. So if she scores in the second match, she'll be at 120. Mallory Pugh, she all time with the US, she has 24 goals and 27 assists. So she's right on the cusp of scoring 25 goals, 25 assists, over 25 assists in her U.S. career before the age of 25. I think she turns 25 in April. So she has a couple more matches to do it for the U.S., but those are just a number of like notables that heading into this game for fans to keep an eye on.
All right. We'll be keeping an eye on it too, in case
I like my stats, Sandra.
We'll be keeping an eye on that too, in case we need to, chat about it in the next episode, because we're going to pivot a little bit into some other recaps across NWSL. We're going to get into those matches that did take place over the weekend right after a quick break.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want more magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount+.
All right. Let's get into some NWSL action here. Before we do, a quick reminder, we want to remind you all about the Women's Super League. It's on Paramount Plus. You can stay tuned for upcoming Attacking Third episodes all about the Women's Super League. We're going to have a 101 episode for you, which I do believe you can already access in case you need to get caught up to date. And we're going to have a really good episode coming out with Sophie Lawson, taking a little bit of a deeper dive across WSL. So make sure that you tune in for those episodes. Let's talk a little bit about the one NWSL regular season fixture that took place this weekend, because there was one. We had New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC versus North Carolina Courage. This was technically match day 3 between these two sides. This was a makeup game that finally was played here in September, because this match was originally scheduled to be played May 14th. Believe this was supposed to be Gotham FC's home opener, but unfortunately, this match was postponed due to COVID-19 protocols. Both teams at the time had a slew of players impacted by COVID-19 and were unable to participate. So the clubs in the league made the decision to sort of postpone this one. So two different teams in two completely different areas of the season. We're talking about May to September, just a lot of different energy around this match, Lisa. And we talked a little bit about that during the preview. We're like, what are we even going to see from this match? How can things shake out? I was torn about it. I was like, I don't know. This might actually have the makings of a draw. Who knows what type of soccer we're going to see in this game. But I believe, if memory serves me correct, we both went with Courage in this one.
We did. We both went with North Carolina, but you were very, very much on the bubble of a draw. And honestly, watching this match, I was like, this is going to be a draw because neither team could break through.
No, you're right. I did have those feelings when I was watching it. I was just like, I believe at one point, just sort of watching it and reacting in real time, I was like, oh man, this is really a little bit of a grinder. We'll just call it that. I don't know if I would call it necessarily a slugfest, because it's not a match that it wasn't necessarily like super chippy or choppy or physical by those means. It just sort of had, I think when I was reacting to it live, I was like, geez, I'm like, this has the energy of like Sunday Scaries and a midweek match all rolled
on
into
a holiday
one
weekend. On a holiday weekend when this game shouldn't have been played over international break, when there was many players missing.
No, I hear you. I think it's one of those games where we saw, a definite, a first half that just was really like, let's sort of feel each other out, go back and forth. Let's try to get, like sort of establish tempo, but then it wasn't really established. And then we finally saw some things pick up a little bit in the second half. Perhaps, maybe that can be attributed to the fact that, there were substitutions that were made, and maybe you're rotating players out and you're getting, different looks or, different type of energy on the pitch. But it did for 80 minutes. For 80 minutes, this game looked as if it was headed towards a 0-0 draw. It had that written all over this game, but that changed in the 81st minute. Fuga Nagano was just going ahead and getting this goal, getting the lone goal in this match, the breakthrough. And I think that maybe sort of tells you a little bit all about this match, that it took until the 81st minute to get not only the winner, but the actual breakthrough goal in this one. And I think I gotta say, like, I watching it happen in real time, Lisa, I was like, God, this is like just, it's agonizing at this point for Gotham. At first it was like, okay, we're heading towards not a loss energy here for Gotham, but it ends up folding out that way for them.
And the fact that yes, North Carolina ended up getting this goal in the 81st minute. Nagano still credited with it. It's not an own goal, even though it was deflected.
At first, I think people were like, maybe it's going to be an own goal, but
no, the way for anyone like questioning that, the way an own goal works is if the initial shot is not directed towards the goal and then the ball gets redeflected and it changes direction to now be on goal, then it's an own goal. But this shot was going for the corner. It was going to be in. So it's not an own goal. So that's great for Nagano, right? That she gets accredited with the goal. Huge for them. But I mean, you just mentioned it. Gotham's suffering their 8th straight loss. They're struggling right now. They suffered with really bad giveaways. They could not build out of the back. They were struggling to connect and build. Ali Krieger was playing higher up in the 6, but with Gotham without Ifeoma Manu up top, she's playing with Nigeria right now. Margaret Purse and Christy Mewis away with the U.S. Victoria Pickett got her first start with this Gotham side in the midfield. I think she had a fantastic game. I love Taylor Smith in the outside back role.
Gosh.
I do. This is, I know, I think we talked about it last week when Gotham played, and she was a defender for so many years. And then she got switched around into that front line, playing a little bit there with North Carolina, and then with Gotham when she initially got picked up by the New Jersey, New York team. And now Hugh Menzies slotting her into that back line. She plays so similarly to Sophia Huerta and Emily Fox, and just attacking that flank, having a nose for goal and a nose for crosses to get into their attacking end. And I love Taylor Smith in that outside back position. She does such a good job.
I think it's one of these things right now where you're just, it's towards the end of the season. You're a last place team at this point. You had tried to, avoid that for a certain period of time, but, with
such
the
a bright spot for them.
With the losses piling up, this is where they are now finding themselves in the table. And I think at this point, with an interim head coach, it's maybe just about trying, some different things, and maybe that was something where it's like they recognize a player like Smith is giving them a lot of great things in practices and trainings and doing a lot of good work for the team, during in-game scenarios. How are they going to figure out a way to try to keep some of these types of players all together on the pitch at the same time? And sometimes that means moving and rotating some pieces around. And seeing Smith, in this one kind of go from top line, back line. It's not a position that she's unfamiliar with, either. She's no stranger to playing up high, and she's no stranger to playing low. But I do wonder if this is, maybe something where we're going to see, a position where we're going to see her at throughout the duration of the remainder of their season. If it is about trying to get your best 11 players on the pitch, again, trying to move some things around. And then you have, you're thinking about when players like Anamanu or Purse or Mewis, coming back and rejoin the team. Like, how do you get all of these players together? And maybe this was just like a preview of that, of what we could see out of Menzies and his coaching staff moving forward. I think even if this game ends in a draw, Lisa, you're talking about an extra point. You're talking about maybe you're talking about maybe like, okay, like here's a step. Right,
it's not the 8th straight loss for Gotham then at that point.
Right, 13 overall on the season.
It's like that losing streak for sure. And Gotham GM Yael Averbuch-West putting out a bit of thoughts on Twitter after this match, actually saying that, assuring everyone that we are not okay with this. We don't want to be at the bottom of the table. Have faith in our future that we're building here. The GM is working with the ownership, is working with the investors to really enhance their on-field identity to match the rebrand that this club went through a year and a half ago. And she appreciates the patience of the fans and the players and the staff, because they're building and they want to be the best, and they're not happy with where they are right now. And I was like pretty impressed with that statement from a GM of a NWSL club. We don't usually hear that. Usually the GMs are a little bit more passive in their criticism of their club that they're the general manager of. But in terms of North Carolina, this is their 3rd win in 4 games. Diana Ordonez listed as questionable heading into this match, but she got significant minutes. Caitlin Rowland, North Carolina goalkeeper, who stepped in for Casey Murphy, huge. Fantastic night for her. 5 saves throughout this game. Michelle Betos had 3, but I think the best one was the Gotham chance on Victoria Pickett, Kawasumi chipping a little cross in, and Pickett getting a great contact on a header, zipping it towards the net, and Rowland just huge. that was the best thing. And then the pressure from North Carolina, that's how they got their goal. It was a high press. Gotham couldn't clear it, and it fell to Nagano at the top of the box, deflected, and really went in. Also, Tess Bodie, shout out to her. Great game, very impressive, getting shots and opportunities for North Carolina. That's the good thing about international windows. It allows other players, Nicole Baxter getting her second NWSL start with Gotham, Tess Bodie really stepping up, Caitlin Rowland. It gives these other players a chance to really show themselves.
Yeah, I think if nothing else comes out of this game for Gotham, they got to tinker around, with players and sort of see what they're going to be getting out of these players for the remainder of their season. And then we got to hear from Oliver Bush West, after the game via Twitter, just sort of talking about those things. And it's tough. We're starting to see those positions, those types of roles, former players in those roles specifically. And it's not easy. Like, we've heard her say that as well this season, going from player to that administrative level. Like, you see things differently when you're in those positions, and change is not as quick as people want it to be. It's actually it's a much longer process, and it's a much different way of doing things. So it was not for nothing. It was very cool to sort of see her take the time to want to make some public statements like that. That the team are trying to work towards something bigger than maybe what the end result might be in this regular season. So we'll see what's next for Gotham FC and North Carolina coming out of this weekend. Before we close out, we just want to say huge congratulations to the Mexican women's senior national team, Copa Angelina, the first edition of this match between the Mexican women's senior national team and Angel City. Mexico taking this one, Lisa. They win 2-0. So a lot of excitement on this match, and I think it delivered. Quite frankly, it was very, very cool to be able to watch the game, on TUDN, and be able to sort of see the Spanish language broadcast of that. A lot of excitement in the stands, a lot of excitement in the crowd. Made me excited.
It was almost like a home game for Mexico.
I think that's a little bit of the point, right? It's like, hopefully this will be the catalyst to some other cooler and better things for not just Angel City, but also Mexico's, women's national team. We see in their men's program, sort of the elevated, hype around their team, particularly in the United States. There's always that running joke that that's America's favorite soccer team.
Yeah.
And we see this team constantly playing across, stadiums in the United States. Maybe this is that next first step for the Mexican women's national team for them to also be included in the Mexican Federation's plans for, having games across the United States. You got to have that first one, I think, to sort of set the tone. And then hopefully in the future, there will be more. We do know there will be one more iteration of Copa Angelina, but this one for now, they got to take home that really cool trophy. And
this is great. This is great.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that this was such a success for Mexico, scoreless at the half, and then they end up notching to one of them actually an own goal.
Yeah.
So double own goals potentially this weekend in like NWSL teams that were competing, but Mexico ends up getting the insurance goal just moments later, and that was like fantastic to see. But they go home with the trophy.
Talking about shout outs, like let's Scarlett Camberos getting that one from. We gotta hit the plug again. Look, when the Women's Cup happened, a lot of people out here maybe got introduced to somebody like Scarlett Camberos for the first time with Club America, and we were really amped to see that she got called into these national team camps because of the interview that we had with her on Attacking Third, where she talked about some of her personal goals was getting back into the mix with the Mexican women's national team. So her sort of getting that go-ahead goal, kind of securing the victory for Mexico's national team here. Really, really cool time.
It definitely is so fun to see, and potentially like more of a home game for Mexico than it was Angel City. But we did get to see a little bit of player rotation from Freya Coombs' side. We saw the first appearance from Ma Vignola, who with Angel City has been dealing with a bit of an injury. So really positives to come out of both of these sides in the future to come for this little matchup that we have.
Yeah, we'll see how Angel City kind of rolls out from this. We saw them come out of that exhibition game against Tigres Femenil, and they kind of came out with a little bit of swagger coming out of that, and they've been kind of hovering right around that playoff position. They're still on the outside looking in, but they really are looking to make that leap. Maybe something like this, with the experience that they just had, will help propel them into that upper half of the table. But we'll see. Again, another thing that we'll have to keep an eye on for next week, and we will be back, quite frankly, to talk about all things NWSL and more. Thanks everybody for listening to Attacking Third. Download, follow, and listen for us. Listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can get them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and stay tuned for more Women's Super League content. We'll be back on Thursday with so much more. Please subscribe to us on YouTube to know whenever we go live. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.